this logo is pushing everything downward, including the navigation bar. So what we want to do is we want to tell it to put this on the left of our page and put the navigation bar on the right of our page. In order to do that, we use a CSS property called float. So we type in, for the logo, float left, and for the navigation bar class, we type in float right. And now we see our navigation bar to the right of our logo, and our logo to the left of our navigation bar. So that works perfectly. So now we're going to add some style to our navigation bar. And what we want to do first is we want to change it from vertical like this to horizontal like this. So in order to do that, we want to go to edit each and every one of our list items. So let's type in navbar space li. And what that does is it edits every list item inside of navbar. So if we were typing header img, it would edit every image inside of the header. Make sense? Alright, so now let's do navbar list item to edit all the list items. And we're going to do something called display inline, which basically puts all of them into a straight horizontal line. So let's do display property inline. What's going on? Oh, I see what the problem is. I mistakenly never added a navbar class to our list, list, yeah. So let's add a class of navbar. And there we go. That should fix it right there. So this is floated to the right, this is floated to the left, and it's all in one horizontal line. Now you might notice that our words are a bit too close together. So what we want to do is we want to increase the margin right in order to add some space to the right of each one of our list items. So let's go back into navbar li and increase our margin right from 0 to maybe 20. And that looks good already. So now you might notice that our text is way too small. So let's scale it up a little bit using a property called font size. Let's change it from whatever size it is now to maybe 30 pixels. And that looks pretty good. So let's keep it that way. And now you might notice that it is too close to the top of our header, so let's move it down a little bit with the margin top property. Margin top, 20 pixels, and let's see if that did move it. Oh, that's right. We have to apply it to the entire nav bar and not just the list items. So let's take that margin top property and paste it into the nav bar area. And there we go. It moves it down. So now let's add some more to it to shift it to the right place. And that looks pretty good. Good. So now what we want to do is we want to change this from black to white. In order to do that, we simply change each list item to be color white. And there we go. And now it's white. Perfect. And now what we want to do is we want to add links to each one of these to link to a different page. So, in order to link to a different page, what we want to do is we want to go down to our li and add something called an anchor, which is basically a link. So in order to add an anchor, we add a new tag called A, which stands for anchor, of course. Close it off, and now we take our ending tag, copy it, cut it, and paste it onto the end of our list item to envelope the entire list item in that link. So now if you reload the page and save it out, you should see there is no difference. And that is because this link doesn't point to anything, it's just empty. It's basically just an empty container. So what we want to do is we want to add a link by adding something called an href, which is basically a URL. So let's type in href equals, and then this is where we will put in our link. Now since our page doesn't actually exist, we don't really have a link, so let's add something called, let's add a blank anchor. And in order to add a blank anchor, what we do is we type in pound, just like that. And that basically provides a link that doesn't go anywhere. See, it doesn't go anywhere when you click on it. Perfect. Now you might notice that this has a very ugly purple line under it. We don't want that. So what we want to do is we want to tell it don't put underlines under our links. So what we want to do is we want to add a new CSS, a new line of CSS called navbar A, which styles the navbar anchors. And we want to tell it no underline. So to do that, we do text decoration. For some reason, they consider underline a text decoration. As you can see in the list of possible properties, underline is right here. We want to do none instead, so just type none. And that should get rid of our ugly purple line while maintaining the link. And it does. So perfect. So now what we want to do is we want to add links to each and every one of our list items. So let's copy this line of code and just paste it in the place of every link. Change the text. And now these are all dead links. They don't go anywhere, but it works. So now what we want to do is change the font to match the font that I used here. And the font I use is a font served by Google Fonts, which is basically a free font service. And it basically just contains a bunch of fonts that you can use for any purpose, even commercial use. So let's go to google.com/fonts to find the font. Basically what Google Fonts does is it provides awesome CSS stuff that basically allows you to embed any font into your HTML document. So let's go there. And there we go. Okay, so let's type in Lato, which is the name of the font family. And there it is. So in order to embed this font into our document, we have to add it to our collection. And then hit use after it shows up at the bottom of the screen. We don't need any weights except for normal. Let's scroll down and it gives you a bunch of steps for exactly how to embed them into your page. So what you do is, number one, choose the styles you want. I only want normal. Choose the character sets you want. Latin, I don't need Latin extended because I speak English and type in English. Add this code to your website. Okay, you take this code here, copy it, and you paste it into the header. Remember when I told you that the header of your document basically tells you information and it links style sheets? What we're doing right now is we are linking a style sheet and telling it some style information. So we paste that in there, and now what we do is we integrate the fonts into our CSS by copying this line into the CSS of whatever property we want to have this font. And so we want our navbar list items to have this font. So let's do that. Let's paste this line directly into our navbar li CSS. And there we go. It automatically puts the font in there. I hope that was somewhat understandable. If it wasn't, there are most likely other tutorials on how to embed Google Fonts into your documents. I suggest you go look for them if you didn't understand that. So, you might notice a significant difference from my original template, and that is the fact that these are in capital letters and these are in regular capitalized letters. So what we want to do is we want to transform all the letters to uppercase. And we simply do a property called text transform. Let's go back into our list item. Type in text transform uppercase and semicolon. And then if we reload the page, you can see that it's automatically all capital letters. So as you can see, it's getting a little bit closer to our original document. Now you might notice that this is a little bit too close to the right, but we can fix that by adjusting the margin right of our navigation bar. That's a little bit too much. Let's adjust that. Maybe 50 pixels would be alright. No, 40. Let's do the same margin as the logo. That looks pretty good. So now what we want to do is we want to edit our style for our slideshow. So you may notice here that this So you might notice here that this takes up the entire width of our website, but this is floated to the left and there's a lot of blank space over here. So in order to fix that, what we have to do is we have to tell it to make the slider div the width of the entire website. So to do that, what we do is we add new CSS for the slideshow, open bracket, close bracket. In between those brackets, type width 100%. Now you might notice that it doesn't do anything, and that is because we have only made the container holding this image 100% width. So if I were to just make the background color of this blue, you could see that it really does make it 100% width. But what we want is not to make the div 100% width, but we want the image to be 100% width. So what we do is we just add a simple image property to apply the 100% width style to every image inside of the slideshow div. So let's just do that, and there it is. Perfect. Now it is the full width of our document. So now let's move on. So you might have already noticed that the background of this is gray, but the background of this is white. So we probably want to change that. So in order to change that, what we want to do is we want to take our hex code from our background. There we go. And now we want to go back into our body style, and we want to add a background. Just type in background. And then you type in your you paste in your hex code. Now, if you were to reload that, you might notice that it doesn't work. And that is because in front of a hex code you need a pound sign. And then it works. So, you might notice now that this black does not show up very well on this gray background, and it looks weird. So what we want to do is we want to assign the color of the whole body, the text color, to be white. So let's do a color property and set it to white. And there we go. And now that sets our whole body to be the color white. So now what we want to do is we want to make